All right, it's talk time now. The Minister of Solid Minerals Development says Nigeria's solid minerals sector has been operating below capacity, making up only about 0.34% of the country's gross domestic product.
The minister, who stated this at his inaugural press briefing, attributed this to the fact that many mining operations were manned by small-scale artisan miners with limited number of large-scale players.
Nigeria is a nation endowed with many natural resources. Sadly, the sector has suffered various setbacks due to policy shifts. Due to the uncertainty in the sector, many private investors have left the country. The Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Kayode Fayemi, says not much attention has been paid to the sector over the years, and this has grounded the mining sector to a halt. He added that the global mining market is in turmoil as key sources of demand that supported prices over the past 2 decades have declined.
We're going to focus a lot on industrial minerals that can help us achieve import substitution in the country, because there are so many things that we have that we can work on. This is a matter that Mr. President insists of, and I am reasonably confident that before the end of the first quarter of 2016, we would have a direction as to whether we're taking it over and running it ourselves or resolving the legal issues involved.
The trajectory of Nigeria's extractive industry has not been without controversy. The minister says there is need to build an emerging industry like the Ajokuta mining that will support Nigeria's industrialization and expansion of low-cost coal-generated power. This, he says, will earn foreign exchange and generate tax revenues for government at all levels.
Much of Nigeria's mining is conducted informally at levels as high as 80% of activity in some regions of the country are not necessarily of Naira earnings. We need to bring these informal miners into a legalized framework, making them real startup miners and ensuring they pay government the right set of taxes and royalties. I want to be clear, there would no longer be a free lunch, as the Mining Act will be firmly enforced henceforth.
The solid minerals share of GDP is currently put at 400 million naira per annum, but is expected to grow over the coming years as this administration shifts its focus gradually away from oil. But the mining sector can only improve if Nigeria and our partners create a profitable and sustainable policy for solid minerals growth. That is a task the Solid Minerals Minister says is determined to achieve.
All right, you listened to the Minister of Solid Minerals there. That was a press briefing he had sometime last year, looking into the projection of 2016. But here we are, Kayode Fayemi, the Minister of Solid Minerals, and here we are now towards the end of 2016. So how those projections have really played out is something so far another person is going to talk about. But right now joining us is a mining and solid minerals consultant, Tony Nwakalo. It's good to have you join us right now.
Good morning, glad to be here.
All right, the last time we had you here, you gave us a picture. You painted a vivid picture. In fact, we used the word, if Nigerians get to know what's going on, they're going to cry here on the program, I remember. Because you gave us a picture of how wealthy Nigeria is. When people talk about the potential of Nigeria, but there is actually that big potential out there. We're standing on potentials everywhere, but up below the ground, we're not seeing that potential translate. But let us go into the main issue right now. The minister, you heard him there, who says that artisans are the ones who do anything solid minerals so far. We don't see the big companies coming in and all of that. Why do we have that when we know there is so much wealth under our ground?
Thank you for having me. Good morning. we would start by looking at the history of mining and activities in Nigeria. Like I said the last time I was here, the foreigners who have technical capacity, because there's a lot of geophysics in what you do. It's almost like what they do in oil and gas. Extractive industry is extractive industry, regardless of if it's crude oil or it's solid minerals. You're dealing with the ground. So there's going to be mine planning, there's going to be design, you're going to do sample analysis. It's technical. This isn't exactly what Nigerians like to hear in business. So bankers don't want to hear this information. The politicians don't want to hear this information. So it becomes a bit dicey. But what really chased the capacity away is the indigenization decree, I think, under the era of General Gowon. So a lot of the foreign companies were not comfortable with that decree, where they had to let Nigerians into sizable amounts of ownership in those companies, and a lot of them left. The few that stayed could not work in a state-led mining industry, because then you started to have things like Nigerian Iron Ore Mining Company, Nigerian Uranium Mining Company, Nigerian Coal Corporation. The government can't do the business. It's evident. It's been evident, and for everyone who cares to know, they can't do the business. So what His Excellency General Olusegun Obasanjo did is one of the landmark events in the country, setting up the privatization of all of these assets in 1999, and then the Solid Minerals Act, the Mineral and Mining Act of 2007. That's where the industry started. So regarding what you've said, Nigeria is not necessarily looked at as a mining jurisdiction. There's something called the Fraser's Index. What the Fraser's Index does is like the Moody's rating in finance. Yes. So it looks at the policy perception of mining jurisdictions. I looked at the index for the last year. Nigeria was not even in the bottom 10. Wow. I mean, Zimbabwe, Mongolia.
And this is a country that has over 40 mineral resources, though not all of them are
in
commercial quantity.
Yes, Nigeria has what is. So if you understand geology, you would see, if you understand the Precambrian the African basement complex, there's 3 geological formations in Nigeria. If you understand the associated minerals with these 3 formations, you know how wealthy the country is. Wow. I'm not even talking about speculative discussion. I'm talking about scientifically proven discussions. This is the basis the British carved out Nigeria, so they can move resources. Nigeria was built out of a trade arrangement, I think.
Yes, indeed.
So what has happened is, I don't think the military had the technical capacity to carry that kind of vision out, where they've started mining tin in the north, they've started mining coal in Ogbete mine in Enugu. There's a lot of thought that goes into building the capacity, building your electricity capacity, using your coal assets to power rail, because that's for bulk handling of all of these ores. There's no commodity exchange till today, which is very critical. Everybody talks about how do you bring, you heard the minister even say it. He says he wants to bring the artisanal miners, right? You mentioned it.
Yes,
okay, so you ask yourself, what can the incentive be? The man is using an excavator that he has rented to hit the vein locally, and he has got the ore out, and there's off-taker for the crude ore. Because you have to separate, most of these metals, the base metals are sulfide metals. So like zinc, for example, is from a mineral called sphalerite, zinc sulfide. Lead is galena, which is lead sulfide. So you don't know all these things even in the media. The customs probably don't have the knowledge about these technical issues. So for you, it looks like a stone. You don't know the concentration. You don't know the concentration of zinc or lead in that stone. So there's a lot of capacity gap. I think that's what the issue is.
All right, we'll certainly come back to this. Now, things are looking up the Nigerian mining sector. This week has been set aside to celebrate the maiden edition of the Nigerian Mining Week, geared towards reviving the sector.
Okay, the Miners Association of Nigeria and other stakeholders will use the forum to discuss issues affecting the sector and how to attract investors and financial partners. But let's give you a brief overview of the mining industry in Nigeria.
Well, Nigeria is blessed with vast reserves of solid minerals that include stones of all kinds, precious metals and industrial minerals. Certainly, Tony is going to break down all of these things for us as we get along. Others that can generate revenue for the economy if they are well utilized. Underline the word if they are well utilized.
The country has a huge deposit of untapped natural resources in at least 44 out of the 500 locations spread all across the country. Now, some of them are gold, barite, bentonite. Of course, some of them may really sound very strange to you. Limestone, coal, bitumen, which we really do have in very large quantity. Iron ore, columbite, lead, zinc, gemstones, granite, marble, lithium, and silver, among so many others.
However, some of them are not in commercial quantity, though. But in the early 70s, Nigeria was a major exporter of coal, tin, and columbite. But the discovery of oil as a major source of foreign exchange for the country put paid to the attention the mining sector enjoyed at that time.
Security and illegal mining and community challenges. Now, since the fall in the price of oil, attention is again shifting to the non-oil sector, especially agriculture and mining, to realize their full potential.
One of which was the enactment of the Nigerian Minerals and Mining Act in 2007. Presently, iron ore, coal, lead, zinc, bitumen, gold, limestone and barite have been identified by the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development as 7 strategic minerals for priority development.
Now, in August, President Buhari approved a new roadmap for the mineral extractive industry. This is expected to contribute up to $27 billion to Nigeria's GDP by 2025. Of course, as it stands today, it's somewhere around 0.3%, or so, to the GDP. Now, the roadmap would state the government's regulations in the mining sector. The roadmap would give operators and regulators and how to move the sector forward.
The Federal Executive Council on October 19th approved the release of a 30 billion naira intervention fund for the development of the mining sector.
Okay, so tell us about this roadmap, which government is hoping to make Nigeria some $27 billion by 2025. That's around the corner. How can this vision actually be actualized?
When the government stops thinking about mining from a state-led perspective to a private sector-led perspective, it might be possible. That's a very ambitious figure, if you ask me. And if you look at the amount of capacity from the industry, people who actually understand what needs to be done, it leaves a lot to be, desired. I've looked at it, I've read the roadmap several times. I almost know everything that's in there by heart.
You want to give us an idea of what exactly is in the roadmap?
Well, what the minister did was he set up a 17-man steering committee chaired by Professor Malomo, who was the former DG, I think, of NGSA, and Professor Garba. And they brought in a few stakeholders who looked at the industry to try to direct the course of the actions that should be carried out to make the Nigerian solid mineral industry vibrant again. I think the consultants used were Baines & Company, Deloitte and PwC. So they put together a document. They're professionals. Once your signature is on a document as an international consultant, you have to do a proper job. Well, the issue is, what are they doing with the document now? That's the issue. I have a few questions about some of the things that are going on, and I'll make it very simple. If you look at the Mineral and Mining Act of 2007, it stipulates what every company that's trying to get into the business should do, which means there are only 6 licenses you can give. One is a reconnaissance permit if you want to carry out your own airborne survey yourself. Maybe you're not satisfied with the information that NGSA is able to provide. The second one is your mining lease, exploration license. Then you have your water use permit. Then you have your small-scale mining lease. Then you have your mining lease in itself. Now, you are not supposed to be carrying out commercial exploration where you start to export with an exploration license. You're supposed to go onto the site. You're supposed to do core drilling, and then you're supposed to get those samples out, and you're supposed to analyze those samples so that it can aid your mine planning and development, so that you can extract those minerals of interest in the most optimally economically beneficial ways. Because the pricing point with which you enter the market is also important for all of these ores. Now, this is not the kind of thinking you expect. I don't expect it from civil servants today. That's based on capacity. You look at if you say 80% of those who are doing carrying out mining are artisans, you don't expect them to do mine planning. You don't expect them to do mine development. You don't expect them to go and do mineralization reports. You don't expect them to go and do environmental impact assessment. That's too much stress. They are locals.
They may not even know.
So you've come to the critical issue. What is the government doing? The government needs, because we are not even on the map, they should stop going out to look for foreign investors. Foreign investor means that a foreign bank is giving them money to put in Nigeria. What about Nigerian banks? I asked that question the last time I was here. Yeah. Why are they not giving your locals money to mine? That means it's a trap. Then they go and check ease of doing business index. You are number 169 out of 180. They go and check your Fraser's index. You are not even in bottom 10. You are just going for a talk shop. The indices that require them to act, they can encourage you to come.
Okay, let me look at this. Now, Bloomberg says that Nigeria needs about $7 billion to actually, is the word revive, or to activate the mining sector. While, of course, the minister himself, Kayode Fayemi, said he needs about $500 million. I mean, the disparity is quite large. Obviously, somebody seems to understand, what it takes more than the other person. Exactly what will it take?
You see, we need to have a minister. Unfortunately, I mean, I like to sound politically correct, especially when I'm on TV. But the truth of the matter is, when you look at the previous conversation you had before I came on electricity, you look at the position of the West on coal to power, why they don't want to support African nations because of CO2 emissions. Yet in their countries, America has close to 38% coal-generated electricity. They might be decommissioning the plants, no doubt, because of climate change. But we can have 20% coal power out of 100%. We're not going to be contributing that amount that is so terrible. There's scrubbing technology.
Since we have so much
coal, there's scrubbing technology. They've paid a company to carry out a coal to power research for the Anambra Basin, which is Kogi District, Benue District, and Enugu District. Between Kogi and Benue, you have enough fuel for 30 years in Kogi for 3,500 megawatts of electricity. Okay. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that if you look at all the indices you put together, I want to say to you, just in response to your question, that the World Bank, I don't know who you said,
Bloomberg.
The Bloomberg figures will be closer to reality. Because when you come to look at what our minister is saying is exploration, I want to ask a critical question. What is he exploring? He has chosen 7 priority minerals. Agreed. So how are you going to carry out import substitution, which your roadmap says you want to achieve in short term? So you want to get the amount of, for example, iron ore. The amount of iron ore Nigerian companies are importing, you want to keep that foreign exchange in the system and substitute it with local mining activity. Geology tells us that Kogi State has the best iron ore deposits. And I have seen reports that says it's not only Itakpe that has iron ore. There's Tajimi, there's Ajabonoko, there's Choko. What's happening in all those places?
Where are the Choku? What part of the country is that?
It's Kogi State.
All are within
Kogi State.
Wow,
yes.
That's great. Okay.
All right, more information for you then. Nigeria is one of the most endowed countries of the world. I mean, that is out there. The Ministry of Solid Minerals recently said that it will be focusing on 7 solid mineral deposits for now. So let's look at each of them and try to break them down to start with. Of course, let's begin with coal. Coal was first discovered in Nigeria in 1909 in Enugu State. The huge deposit of coal scattered across the country is commercially exploitable, even though it has not been tapped to the fullest.
Geological surveys show that there are proven reserves of more than 600 million metric tons of coal in Nigeria, and indicated reserves of about 2.6 billion metric tons. Now let's move on to limestone. It is classified as one of the strategic minerals in Nigeria. It is a rock with an enormous diversity of uses. Now the largest and purest deposits of limestone are found in the southwest and middle belt regions of the country.
Nigeria has an exponential amount of limestone widespread in its sedimentary basins, which provide the raw materials for the cement factories in the country. Now, the resource base of the known limestone deposits is about 2.3 trillion metric tons. And now to iron ore. There are over 3 billion metric tons of iron ore deposits found in Kogi, Enugu, and Niger states, as well as the Federal Capital Territory. Now to lead and zinc.
Lead and zinc is an estimated 10 million tons of lead and zinc veins, and that they're spread over 8 states of Nigeria. Now, focusing on gold now, there are proven reserves of both alluvial and primary gold located in the southwest and northern states like Niger, Kaduna, Zamfara, Osun, Kebbi, Kogi, and Edo states. Now, bitumen, on the other hand, Nigeria has about 42 billion tons of bitumen, almost twice the amount of existing reserves of crude petroleum. Enormous deposits of bitumen abound along a 120-kilometer stretch spanning 3 states of Nigeria. It is used for road construction.
Indeed. And let's, well, others include, bentonite, never heard that one before, I'm sorry. Barite, which are the main constituents of the mud, used in the drilling of oil wells. Now, more than 7.5 million tons of barite have been identified in Taraba and Bauchi states. And Nasarawa, Benue, and Cross River are some other states that have large deposits of barite. How on earth, Tony, is it that a country that has so much has so little to show for it?
You see why I wanted to
Look
cry.
at bitumen, for example.
I'm glad you're seeing it yourself. I didn't even give this wherever you're getting these statistics from is what it's I mean, if I was God and I listened to the prayers, because we pray a lot in Nigeria, I'll be worried as what I need to do to make the country realize that we have a competitive advantage over every nation of this world. It's only Nigeria that has 2 rivers coming in. One from Adamawa Highlands, one from the Guinean Highlands.
Almost in the same proportion.
So River Niger traveled with a lot of what you are calling in millions now, and it got to Mali, a place called Timbuktu. That's why they call it the City of Gold, and it deposited some of the gold there. It didn't continue in its journey up north to North Africa, and then the River Niger turns back down, avoids a few of the African countries like Niger, and it enters into Nigeria.
I like the way you've put it.
But that's exactly, I'm telling you,
it's like a journey.
Yes,
like
geological
a
activities, geological time scales I'm talking about, before the coming of Homo sapiens and all that. This is eons ago.
Yes.
So Nigeria has a lot of everything deposited from those 2 rivers because they meet in Kogi State. That's why you have a lot of iron ore, gold. Kogi is the richest state in this country.
Wow.
But a lot of people, you see, if you don't have a minister who is passionate and who understands how to take charge, they're not working a lot because there's nobody who is leading the charge. The ministry is supposed to be building anchor extraction and dressing plants for each of these 7 minerals. They won't give you the money. World Bank will give him the money. That's how it works. It's development finance. So what is he telling them? The people who will help you, perhaps you don't have.
So what should he be telling them?
He should be telling them to get EPCs who will come and develop the mine development and dressing plants for gold, for coal. I personally know a few of the Chinese companies that can do that. I've sent proposals. Nigeria, do you know what our gold reserves are? You've heard the amount of gold, right? Okay,
amazing.
So let me tell you what is in CBN. It's 21.37 tons. You don't even say that outside.
Wow.
You say you don't even say that outside.
I mean, if you play what you just played, you supplied me the information on gold reserves, and I'm saying what we have to benchmark our currency in terms of recession. That's what gold reserves are used for.
And bitumen in such large quantity, and we still have bad roads?
Well, bitumen, bitumen has
a major
effects.
component?
It is. Bitumen is good for road construction, but our weather is not necessarily the best for bitumen. Concrete roads are better for Nigeria because bitumen is oil sands, so the heat will always melt it, and once there's a lot of weight, that's why you have bad roads all the time.
But we can sell it to countries, temperate regions.
They say that the commodity, you always hear commodity prices are low. Okay, so oil prices are low too, right? Are they not still selling the oil?
All right, let's bring in Foladele in here to give us a perspective of reactions on social media when it comes to solid minerals. Hi,
Fola. Mind blowing to
Hi,
hear those figures.
Yes.
And you standing behind this looks like it makes you feel like a miner there.
It looks like Nkalago.
No. Someone once described Nigeria as living by the river yet dying of thirst.
Oh my.
And it was interesting that Johnny was saying if he was God or if he were to be God, all these prayers, yet you have all these things, do something with it. All right, well, let's see what people are saying about our abandoned sector, as the minister has called it. The strategist says that the opportunities in the mining sector in Nigeria are mind-blowing. Let us wake up and do it. #diversity in Nigeria's economy. Boyega says, time to look seriously at the mining sector as another major source of revenue generation for Nigeria. Kudos, Kaede Fayemi, who says there are exciting days ahead for the Nigerian mining sector and we remain committed to realization of our roadmap. God bless Nigeria.
Yeah, that's the minister.
That's coming from the minister himself.
So it's quite comforting and reassuring. Sheon Tayo Balogun says, exciting days for Nigeria's mining sector. And the last one here that I would like to take you up on, Tony. Hossein Ghazanfari says, Nigeria in talks with Iran on ways to strengthen trade relations, particularly in the mining sector. Can you tell us more about this?
Okay. When you're talking about trade, You have to talk about it in context with where the ministry is going. And the ministry has its immediate initiatives, short-term, medium-term, long-term, and ongoing initiatives. That's what the roadmap says. The immediate initiatives start from June 2016. The short-term is from June 2016 to the next 2 years. That's import substitution, which means that the focus is not on export on the short term, which is 0 to 2 years. So let me deal with what that means. What that means is somebody in the minister's team, because he hasn't exposed us to these mines, and this is the most important part of the whole conversation. We need to know who he's working with that is developing the strategy so that they don't just give money as grants like Father Christmas to say, because you have done X, go and explore, even though that's not what Nigeria needs. Nigeria needs a model of everything. So what I'm saying is, in the immediate term, it's not Iran, based on the roadmap. In the immediate term is how the companies in Nigeria who are importing iron ore will stop spending that money importing iron ore. I heard a figure like $3 billion. If you do the math of calculating how much iron ore you will buy with $3 billion, I don't think that there's any mine in Nigeria that can provide 1/4 of it.
You know, I also heard that the minister said we need $500 billion to revive the mining sector.
500 million, actually.
Yes, $500 million. Where are we going to get that from?
So one of the things, they're borrowing money, right? I heard you mention a figure, $29 billion. So imagine a different business model where instead of me borrowing money, I spend the one I have or get AFDB, who are partner financial institutions already here, to give me money to start to mine gold just on Niger State and in Osun State. Each kg of gold is about $45,000. You have places where you have 6,000 kg on just 16 kilometers square, like I've told you before. That's new capital, unencumbered, straight from that's God's blessing. Because there's no, because it's right there, it's there. But what is happening is they're trying to encourage you who is an artisan that I will give you money. What is the money going to do for you? Because if 80% of those who are doing the business, as you said, are artisans, that's 80% of your capacity right there.
Already.
They can't do what I'm saying. They don't have the capacity to do it. They might like to. So even if you want to empower them, then you have to bring in EPCs, not foreign investors. Foreign EPCs means engineering, procurement, and construction. They are the ones who will build this mine for you, build the dressing plant, tell you, oh, this capacity of this will be 200 tons per day, 5,000 tons per day. So when you have limestone, you want to convert your limestone straight from limestone to cement, right? The cost of a 300 ton per day limestone facility, as confirmed today as I sit with you, is about $7.5 million. 300 tons per day means that you have 6,000 bags per day. A bag is 2,300. That's about 12 million naira daily. What's your cost? The limestone is already in the ground. What are the other two raw materials are gypsum and clay, which you still have in the ground. So I'm not understanding the country very well. I think the generation that is in power, we need to talk to them in a different way. So they understand that they are leading us not the right way. They are trying, but we cannot be subjected to the capacity of a man who's not passionate. One, I'm not saying it to hit at anybody, but someone then who doesn't have capacity, because the foreigners are watching, you see. Once you start to do certain, okay, I'll give you a typical, this is another interesting thing I'll point out.
But passion is one thing, capacity is another thing.
You need both.
Yes.
You need both, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. But you may, have the capacity. That takes care of passion.
No,
because
it doesn't.
Capacity should solve that
problem. No.
Okay.
It doesn't. Passion is when you see the obstacle, you roll your sleeves. That's passion.
Yes, like you see in the Lagos
capacity, yes. Capacity is what needs to be done. When the obstacle comes, you just figure out a smart way to get away. No stress. Just let it be.
Because you could have capacity and not have passion.
It's passion that keeps you going.
That's the will. That's the will when we talk about political will. As the
True.
Fala, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Tony.
All right. Now, Tony, when it comes to the issue of, one of the tweets talked about the issue of trade with Iran and all of that. The market is one very, very vital aspect in all of this. Bitumen, barite, bentonite, all of the night, some of them we don't even know what they are, but we might only see a stone and all of that. Where are the ready-made markets for all of these if we have to go into extraction of these minerals?
Okay, so this is a very interesting question. Locally, what happens with your commodity exchange is Your commodity exchange is the organization that's set up to have everybody who carries out value addition for agro products and value addition for solid mineral products, because it provides warehouses in select locations. It provides labs like what SGS has to test products for quality certification. So you then have what you have ordinary members, you have trading members, and you have institutional members. So instead of belaboring how you want to bring artisans on board, their cooperatives will take their products and they will come and test it. So if it's extraction of metal ores from North Central, for example, because there's a lab there dedicated to North Central, because there's storage for agro-based products and solid mineral-based products, they can wait for price movements. Then at that point, because it's software, like your banking software. So even you as a banker, you can see the historical movement of cocoa. You can see the historical movement of tin locally, that's Nigerian prices. At this point, it becomes vibrant. Then you are not telling the foreigner, they know what we have in terms of quality. They don't know what we have in terms of structure. So at this point, within ourselves, our capacity, we are building all the things that were moribund, because the exchange is a priority of the Ministry of Investment, Industry, Trade and Investment, MITI. So what are they doing with the exchange? How many contracts are actually happening on the exchange? What is the storage for agro products? They're always talking about tuta absoluta, tomato. There's somebody supposed to create cold rooms.
It's very good a point you make there with the commodities exchange. I know that Ethiopia's economy has been turned around,
That's what happened.
With commodities exchange in the agriculture sector. Now, let's not lose sight of the ecological impact of extracting, these minerals. With the example that's happened, with the Niger Delta region, with the extraction of, oil, exploration and all of that. In Jos, one heard about a situation where there was some kind of poisoning, radioactive, activity, or
and even lead poisoning.
Yes, indeed. Where some 2 million people were affected. So, as we're talking about exploiting solid minerals, we should be looking at the ecological impact, pari passu.
Nigeria has the best law. There's what you just said is already taken care of. It's whether you want to do what they've said. It's a different issue. We have a way of always. So what the law says is that you're supposed to, when you move from exploration license to a mining lease, one of the requirements to get your mining lease is an environmental impact assessment report, which will show what is your plan from excavation to reclamation of the land when mining activities. When you are closing the mine, there's reclamation plan. Are you reclaiming the land for tourism? Are you reclaiming the land for agriculture? EIA will state all of this. Now, if you have artisans, this is the reason why artisans won't do all these things. If the ministry doesn't take charge, we'll be doing conference till 2019. That's the truth, because the people on the field are not the people you are showing on TV.
All right, so if although we don't have all the time now, but if steps where we are now, we know, okay, things are not the way they're supposed to be, but if practical steps have to be taken, what is the step-by-step level we should take to get to that dream of Nigeria being a hub of the producers of solid minerals?
Especially in the short term.
So the one of the biggest challenges is electricity, because you cannot smelt without electricity. And that's unfortunately what you need to be able to separate and create the ingots that help you trade in the specification that the international market wants. But there are a few markets that are already buying ore just because the concentration is so high. We have lead concentration of up to 80% in Nigeria. Most countries don't have as much as 45. So they can buy the ore like that and pay. And what needs to happen is there has to be anchor dressing plants for each of these 7 minerals. For limestone, you have to have a cement plant attached to one of the areas where you have economically high deposits. For iron ore, you need to build something and bring the state governors in so that they understand that instead of agitating for resource control, what the maximum the federal government gets is 5% royalties. The private company, which is you and I, are collecting 95%. We can share with the state. It's a different strategy. Leave the legislative bottlenecks out of it. Focus on the business model. Does it work? Will it be profitable? When the governor is thinking like this, when the minister is thinking like this, then he will bring private companies in. Then we'll look at the model and where we want to start so that others look at what we've done.
All right. Tony Nwakalo, mining and solid minerals consultant, thank you very much for spending your
Thank
morning
you for
with us.
having me.
Thank you so much.
And the vivid picture you always paint in the mind, it makes people, endear people to these things even more. Thank you.
Indeed. And it's very obvious, Mike, that, you know, this solid mineral sector that we're talking about is highly technical.
Yeah,
and
it's
like I
very
just said,
technical.
it requires capacity and even, you know, more importantly,
And
passion.
it also
Of
requires
course,
a lot of geological, scientific
know-how and what have you.
this
And,
and
you know,
that,
it was said somewhere that the neglect of solid minerals is why Nigeria remains poor. How true is that?
Well, one way or the other is arguable. It depends. Everything has to do with the will if it is done. Well, this is where we come to the end of today's edition of the program. Thanks for spending your morning with us. Tomorrow again, we'll come to talk about other things. I am Mike Okwache.
And I am Ngozi Alimudu. Have yourselves a beautiful day. Bye now.